You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension, a dimension of truth, a dimension of freedom, a dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the Capitalist Corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the Capitalist Corner.
Everybody, happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I am your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Leibowitz, who is also the host of his own show. It was show, now it's shows. It started with the Rational Egoist, to show everybody should be watching, but it has expanded a lot. Michael, talk to us about this expansion, and what does this expansion offer our capitalists in the audience here today?
Well, we've of course got the Rational Egoist. We've got some great episodes coming up of that with Sheldon Richman, the great libertarian. I just got done with an interview with Larry Sharpe, who's running for governor of New York under the Libertarian banner. A young guy just interviewed me recently. So we've got all kinds of stuff coming up there. But then we, of course, have this. Larry Sharpe will be our guest next Tuesday. We also have Vance Ginn coming on here, the economist. So that'll be great. I also do Everyday Ethics every day at 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific, where I deal with ethics from a practical, everyday standpoint. You and I, of course, have Self-Made Soul on the weekends. Everything's looking up. Things are going great.
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear that, Mike. Well, you sounded like you weren't done with your sentence, and I just cut you off.
No, I think I was done. Everything's going very well. I just had a debate yesterday on this channel, not this station. Oh, by the way, just so you know, Persephone's wicked pissed with you, and she may not tell you this, but every time, evidently, every time you say same bat time, you then say same bat place. And evidently, you're supposed to be saying same bat channel. So Persephone seems to think that you have an aversion to uttering the word channel. And while she doesn't tell you during our pre and post show, she has no problem with going to the comment section on YouTube and roasting you horrifically.
Really? She's roasting?
Yeah. Oh, she goes sick over there. Yeah.
Wow. I don't know how to take that. Listen here. I got to give our disclaimer, folks. We are not.
You have to announce the super chat first.
Robert Nacer, thank you very much for your $2 super chat. Merry Christmas, gentlemen. Celebrate hard. I'll do my best too, my friend, and I know Michael will as well. Without alcohol, without drugs, of course. A sober and wonderful Christmas. We are not affiliated with the American Capitalist Party, even though we are ranking members. What we say here is our own opinion. If you want to know what the American Capitalist Party platform is and what their policies are, please go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org and check them out for yourself. Be a part of the change, folks. I think the events that we're going to be talking about today certainly demonstrate a need for another way of looking at the world. Michael, on the title of the episode today is Deplatforming Antisemitism. Of course, we're going to recap your debate with that Democratic Capitalist yesterday, which drove me crazy. I'm sure it drove you crazy as well. And anybody watching it probably drove insane just to watch the mental acrobatics that a person like that has to go through to legitimize their own philosophy in their own eyes. It's a pretty disingenuous way of doing business, buddy. But you subjected yourself to it. Thank you very much for that. It was good to hear our arguments versus their arguments. I think everybody could take from it nice ammunition for any arguments that we have in the future. Now, Michael, if you want to.
So let's talk about the debate first.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay. So the debate stemmed from an interaction that I had on TikTok. And by the way, Persephone, just so you know, I just sent you an email with the last email I received from those people. So you can check that out, Persephone. And I got your email. So the guy reached out to me on X a while back. On TikTok, and said he'd like to debate. You know, he's an advocate of what he called democratic capitalism, which is just New Deal democratic stuff, right? That's all it is. So he challenged me to a debate. And so the thing he started off with was that basically prior to the New Deal, we were a laissez-faire economy, laissez-faire capitalism, and there were two camps fighting it out, the laissez-faire camp and the socialist camp, and Roosevelt took the turn in between. As a result, he claimed that we had the biggest economic boom in the country's history, which is of late been choked off by all the deregulation and movement toward laissez-faire capitalism again that is spearheaded by the Republican Party. So that's what he claimed. He also claimed that the Constitution guarantees equality of opportunity to everyone. So in my opening statement, I pointed out, I said, look, first of all, Hoover was no laissez-faire capitalism prior to Roosevelt, and I explained why. I also went into detail that when it comes to economic regulations, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, the financial sector, the banking sector, the housing market, and unemployment benefits, there has never in the history of this country been a 4-year presidential term where there's been less of those things at the end of that term than there were at the beginning. It's never happened. And then I pointed out to him that my main problem with everything he's advocating is it relies on the initiation of force. So I'm going to kill Razi Ginsburg. No, not really. I'm just seeing his thing here. So anyways, we'll address Razi in a minute, the rich Razi Ginsburg. So my point, he responded and said, why is it okay for nature to coerce you, but not the government to coerce you? And
this drove me crazy, Michael. This drove me crazy.
So his point was, because I have to eat, so I have to go pay to a restaurant, there's no difference between that and paying taxes from a government threat. So we had to differentiate, and this is a problem a lot of times when having discussions with people is they don't understand the basic terms that they're using, because coercion, of course, stems from people who have a choice, who are moral actors. Nature, of course, is not a moral actor, not making a choice. He was confusing metaphysical facts with choices humans made. Then he said, well, because of democracy, because I have the right to vote, that it's not coercion. And I pointed out, well, if me and 5 of my friends are at a restaurant and we vote that you're going to pay for our dinner, that's democracy. He said, no, that's different. So it was concept dropping, floating abstractions, everything that you could think of with this guy. I think I won handily, although I became frustrated with the inability to communicate. Ultimately, he was a nice guy. He wasn't disrespectful. Wasn't a name caller or anything like that. But a lot of the frustration, it's interesting because I've gotten used now to debating for quite some time people that share our general premises. Right. So if I debate an anarcho-capitalist, for instance, we all agree that people shouldn't initiate force against others. We agree in the virtue of free markets, and it's about methodology or, how you implement these things, strategy, tactics, that sort of thing. But when debating with someone with a completely different vocabulary and worldview, it became a bit of a challenge, but I think I handled it well.
I thought you did, and so did Grok. Grok showed that you had the more consistent arguments and that you won the debate. It was clear that the guy was evading, confronting the paradoxes in his own thinking.
Yes,
guys, I mean, Rand helps us with that. Always check your premises. This is something this guy needs to do. But unfortunately, Michael, once somebody starts getting clout and reputation with one type of philosophy, they're very resistant to changing.
Did you remember to share this from my X page?
Yes, I did.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So now I want to address the rich Razi Ginsburg on 2 fronts. Razi says that I am wrong on John Cena and wrong on Ben Shapiro. The John Cena point stems from a private dispute that Razi and I are having about whether the career of John Cena was ended properly. I say that it was not. Razi says it was great. So the reason I say it was not is this: John Cena's saying, his persona, everything is never give up, never give up. That's what he does. In the match with Gunther, the end of the match, the end of his career, he's in a sleeper hold, which isn't even a devastating hold. And he does this, taps out. thus destroying his entire persona and legacy. What they should have done is had him pass out. Then he could have lost the match, as they usually do when they're retiring, but he could have kept his main thing, which is never give up. Now, as far as Ben Shapiro, I don't know what Razi's argument is in favor of Ben Shapiro. I understand that Ben Shapiro supports Israel. That's fine. He's also supports religious notions. He supports MAGA. He supports Trump.
But he also supports Ayn Rand's vision of capitalism too.
No, he does not.
He
said
the thing that he liked about Ayn Rand.
People say all kinds of things.
Economic. Now,
Trump says he's a capitalist. Is he?
No. But Ben Shapiro was talking frankly with Yaron Brook, and that's when he said he liked her economic ideas. He differed with her morally on the moral origins of.
Here's the problem: her economic ideas are rooted in her moral ideas.
He doesn't know that, like your friend yesterday just doesn't quite.
Which is why he's wrong. He's a big supporter of MAGA, big supporter of religious stuff. Biden, like Ian Gilmore said, he was a capitalist. Razi's all wet on this, and that's it. And he can't respond on our show. He can go on his show. Well, I'd bring Razi on to respond. That would be great for Razi to come on here and actually debate the issues. I would love that. Razi's wonderful. He's very wealthy. In line of having very wealthy people today, we've got a very wealthy person on the stage with me and Mark Pellegrino. We've got Razi in the chat, and we need super chats.
That's right, folks. Don't forget to like
super stickers.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to this station if you like the content. It definitely needs to be out there in the world. Don't forget to go on YouTube and to do that, please. The algorithm likes that when you do that. And please remember that we're accepting super chats and the super stickers. They are much welcome, especially during this time of the year. Persephone's sort of paraphrased our friend yesterday in the debate, but government gives you the freedom to drive on the right-hand side of the road. He actually said, they take away your freedom to drive on the left-hand side of the road, and by taking away that freedom, they give you another freedom.
Yes, and the fact that I use the roads means that I should have to pay for them, even though I'm compelled to use the road outside my house. I don't have a choice. People were compelled to fund it, and now you're going to compel me to pay for it whether I use it or not. So,
yeah. So, as speaking of,
wait 1 second. We've got the argument of the century.
Yeah, he is at least sane, and he does like capitalism. So in that respect, I'm poor because of this time of the year. I get you. I feel you. That's why you have to embrace Lucifermus, guys. I'll tell you what Lucifermus is in a little while. I just saw Gunther run around the ring for 20 minutes and then lay down on the mat, hugging himself for whatever reason. You guys are into this professional wrestling thing. Who knows what the attraction is there? Please tell me. Young
what do you mean?
Greased up and sweaty. What is it that appeals to you about this?
Have you not seen the women wrestlers?
Yeah, but it's fake wrestling.
Wait a second. You just equivocated. You said it was young men in tights, and I'm pointing out the women in tights.
Oh, are the majority of them men?
The majority of the women, are they men? No.
Are the majority of the wrestlers men?
Yes, but more and more, they're getting more and more women into the thing. And it's not about, we were just talking about Burn Notice, the TV show. Is that real?
No.
So why watch it if it's fake? It's scripted. Why do you watch that?
Because wrestling is supposed to be a combat sport.
No, it's not. Who says?
It is.
Who says?
That's what wrestling is. It's a combat and competition sport. And if you want it, you want your combat and competition sports to be honest, not fake.
Wait a second.
That's called fraud, my friend.
Hold on.
The influence of drugs today? Who's that?
That's Jenna Clean with an $11 super chat. Yeah, thank you very much.
Drugs today? You or me?
I don't know. I'm thinking her. But Razi is dead on about this, that wrestling is theater. Everyone who watches it knows it.
That's not true.
It's about storytelling. In fact,
a wrestling podcast just had me do a cameo for them, and they wanted me to use the term mark because it's a play on my name and because it also indicates people who believe the wrestling they are seeing is real.
Ooh.
And hold on a second. When I did that fucking wrestling movie, which Razi will never let me forget, and you won't ever let me forget, I went to an event at the Olympic Auditorium, and I was surrounded by people who thought the fucking thing was real.
Yeah, but those are nuts. That's not your average fan.
This describes the majority of the population, it seems now.
No, it does not.
Okay.
People that watch wrestling, listen, most wrestling fans understand what kayfabe is. They understand the difference between a job, a work, and a shoot. No, it's theater. It's for entertainment purposes. It tells a story. They're incredibly athletic in what they do in that room. Subby's pulling in the truck. If the dogs bark, he's sorry. But Mark is just wrong about this. Razi, anytime you want to come on this show, and we will do an epic takedown of Mark Pellegrino on the subject of professional wrestling, you have an open invitation, because Mark is wrong. But it's not surprising.
Okay, so do you think deplatforming people works, Michael?
No.
Tell me why.
I don't think it works. This is a difficult topic. First of all, can you hear my dogs? They're going crazy because Subby.
Okay. If you don't say anything about it, we don't really notice it.
Razi, I can't bring you on right now to do it. We're in the middle of something. I'm saying another time, if you want to come on, we can bring you on. Want to bring Razi on right now? We're going to bring Razi on right now.
Bring him on.
All right. So you talk about that for just a second.
Well, because there's a lot of talk going around now about how deplatforming actually made the reputations of the very people they were trying to deplatform. So Nick Fuentes, the idea is that, when they deplatform him, he becomes stronger. When they deplatform Trump, he becomes stronger. When they deplatform a guy like Tucker Carlson, he has a larger following than ever. Same happens with Candace Owen. She gets, she was with Ben Shapiro's organization, then she gets kicked out of there, and now she's larger than ever and more of an influence on the conservative right than anyone would like her to have, except for the. I sent
Razi a link, and now he's saying not today. You could come on just for a few minutes. Now he's telling me no. Razi, you got to make up your mind, but we'll get you on at another time for 20 minutes. But if you want to pop on and say hello, you're welcome to.
Great. It's okay.
Yeah. So no, I don't think the deplatforming works if what you mean by work is shuts them down. That doesn't mean I think that people should platform them either.
Right.
Right.
The solution that the article offers here is that these ideas need to be debated with other ideas. And so, in a sense, platforming them and excusing Tucker Carlson, let's say, for platforming and Nick Fuentes, because these ideas need to be out there. They need to be seen for the absurdities that they are. Of course, I don't think Tucker Carlson actually really pushed back against much of what Nick Fuentes did. But you don't think they should get oxygen, but you also don't think they should be deplatformed either.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer there is. I'm not going to recommend that people platform these guys. I personally would not. And even debating with them or even exposing them, it doesn't work because they don't care. And I read a great book on bullshit. And the hallmark of bullshit isn't necessarily lying. It's that the person that's doing it is unconcerned with the truth. They just don't care one way or the other. So you have this Gunther Eagleman, for instance. He comes on Twitter today and says taxation is theft. Meanwhile, he supports the tariff man, and he doesn't care. When the economy was going slowly, they fired the person that released the numbers. They claim it's fake news, or it's not Trump's fault, it's Biden's fault. But today they come out with good numbers, and now Trump is a hero. And look, they're gloating how everybody else is wrong. And there's no shame there. And you can't even point out the contradiction because they just don't care. There's no shame. Even Bill Clinton. When Bill Clinton got exposed for lying, he felt the need to come out and admit it and say, I'm sorry, I did have a sexual relationship with that woman. Indeed, it was wrong, blah, blah, blah. These people don't even have that. It's non-existent. So I really don't know what the solution is other than to just keep telling the truth, keep making the arguments. But they have an audience that also doesn't seem to be concerned with the truth.
What do you think? What do you think is causing this atmosphere where the politicians are? Thank you very much, Kathy, for the super sticker, $3.99. What do you think is causing this atmosphere, Michael, of these extremely irrational positions getting like almost marquee status in establishment political parties that should be a little bit more mainstream, but they're heading towards the fringes very, very, very quickly.
I think, generally speaking, people like to hear what they already think. They like to be confirmed in their thinking. And look, I mean, it applies to me as well. I much prefer to watch Yaron Brook, than I would to, watch, what's her name there? God, on MSNBC. I can't remember her name.
Rachel Maddow.
Right. I'd much prefer to watch your own because it gives me that confirmation. I enjoy that. I'd much rather talk to you than talk to a socialist. But that doesn't mean I don't listen to what the socialist has to say, or I don't listen to what the left has to say, or MAGA has to say. I still need to get information from a variety of sources. Now, I think, and I actually texted about this today, I think a lot of this started with Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh, I didn't know it at the time. I used to like him and I used to listen to him. Why? Because he was confirming what I like to hear. And so I didn't recognize when he was straying. It took, eventually I did, but it took some time. But now, once Rush started supporting Trump, which was clearly a candidate that was against the things that Rush had been preaching for the previous, 25, 30 years, it was clear that he was being a dishonest broker. It was clear that Sean Hannity was being a dishonest broker. But from them, it's gotten worse now. Now it's Tucker Carlson. Now it's just becoming more and more unhinged. And people like to hear that stuff. They like to be confirmed in their bias, and they can believe it. I don't know if you've heard about these 315,000 ballots that didn't have signatures in Georgia.
No.
Okay, they were legitimate on all accounts. They were legitimate votes, right? That the people that were supposed to sign them didn't. It was a procedural thing. Now, if they discounted 315,000 votes because some poll worker forgot to sign them, that would have been a national, what's the word I'm looking for? Scandal, right?
Right.
And if you ask any of the AIs, it'll tell you, no, it's not stolen ballots or fraud or anything like that. It's just, it was a mistake, whatever. It's not a big deal. Giuliani's out there saying, look, it's proof now, it was stolen. I told you. The whole MAGA on X is out there putting this out there. Look, it's proof it was stolen. Giuliani should sue. Yeah, I agree. I do. Giuliani should sue. Giuliani should go into court and say what he says on X, right? Because in the past, what these MAGA freaks have done is gone into court and not say what they were saying to the public. Because in court, there's actually consequence for what you're saying, right? It's a different story when you're in court than when you're lying to your idiotic, gullible marks. Speaking of marks, right? Mm-hmm. That's what these people are. And in many cases, they want to be marks.
Deeper Diego says, deplatforming is just a concept denoting an individual's choice to kick someone else off their property. People have taken deplatforming to be broader than it actually is. Well, I sort of agree with that, but we're just talking about the value of it, whether or not it actually silences these voices. Yeah, as an owner of X, I have the right to have anybody on my platform I choose.
Well, it's actually not though, right? Because if you in the article they talked about people that were deplatformed by X at the behest of the federal government.
Yeah. In that case, that's not the came They were pressured by the federal government,
right? So it's not just that.
Facebook also deplatformed the New York Post. When it
right.
came out with the Biden information, it was all true. It wound up being true and admitted by the government a year and a half later to be true. In that case, they are not. They are censoring in the name of the government. Can Mark and Razi wrestle for the title of wealthiest objectivists? No, that we can't wrestle for that. There's so many more objectivists a lot wealthier than I. Plus,
who?
I will whoop Razi's ass in a wrestling match so fast it wouldn't.
Listen, whatever you want to do to Razi and his ass.
I have a popped rib. I have a popped rib and a bursitis in my shoulder. And if Razi takes me down, I'll give him $100,000. And if I don't choke him out within a minute and a half, I'll give him a lot of money. That's a huge thing to say. But anyway, Limbaugh even came out and admitted that his concerns about debt was fake in order to attack the Democrats. Did he do that really?
I don't know. I haven't seen it. I don't know if that's true.
Or was that just more?
I will. You give me that offer, I will sweep the leg.
No, you won't.
I'll sweep the leg.
Well, you're going to hurt yourself. You're not going to sweep my leg. Yeah, you can try. I was going to tell a story, but
this is important. This is from Jim right here, and this is my position as well.
My sanction or lack thereof does not hinge on how it will influence others. I agree with you, James. Of course, very well said. But nonetheless, these ideas have to be contended with, Michael. So if you don't want to give them oxygen on the one hand, but you also don't want them to have influence in the society at large, you do have to address them. I've always felt rather compelled to address really bad ideas that I think are gaining prominence in the culture. And oftentimes I'm told, just don't do that. You're spitting in the wind. It's just no good. But nonetheless, these ideas have to be addressed sometimes, somehow, someplace. So what do you recommend when confronting the Nick Fuenteses of the world, right? A complete anti-Semite, Nazi worshiping Stalinista. What do you do with guys like that then? Or the Tucker Carlsons of the world who are just going further and further and further off the rails and shilling more for their Qatari paychecks than they are for liberty. And
the hell if I know.
So we don't know.
If I know. No, I don't know what the solution is. If it were a situation where there were 20 people in front of me that I knew were legitimately seeking the truth, I would know exactly what to do, right? But when you're dealing with social media where there's, not only people, but bots and, people that are on the take to post, I mean, you just don't know. And I don't know, because you're making arguments sometimes to people that just don't care. And then, the thing could be, well, other people will see it. Well, that's the hope, right? And I tend to agree, but I don't know. I don't know how somebody listens to a guy who says he was attacked by demons in his sleep. Like, I don't know how that's not immediately disqualifying. I just don't get it. When Candace Owens, this gets to the anti-Semitism, comes out and repeats the canard that Jews were responsible for the slave trade, and she's got a ton of followers, retweeting this. It's a myth that's been exploded over and over again. Right?
Where does that word canard come from?
Like a false story.
But do you know canard in French means duck, but there's also a version where you don't pronounce the D, you say canard, and it means asshole.
Okay. So Mark wants to show off his understanding of the French language. I'm just trying to communicate in the English language.
French basis. You just use this word.
Well, let me look it up then. But the point I'm trying to make is that she's keeps repeating known falsehoods as if they're new information.
Right.
And people are like, yeah, look, Candace put it out there. Yeah. The only reason that Ben Shapiro, the only reason he doesn't like Tucker Carlson is because Tucker doesn't support Israel.
By the way, Race Jacobs says, for a Bible thumper, she seems unfamiliar with Exodus. This reminds me, I was coming out of a club with a friend of mine. This is probably 20 years ago, Michael. We were in like Venice Beach. It's the middle of the night. We're coming out of the club. My buddy's Jewish and a comedian. And some black guy walked up to us and said, hey, man, can you give me a quarter? Slavery and everything. He's like, well, can you give me a quarter? Because first your people enslaved my people. So I'd like that quarter first. So clearly she doesn't remember that in Exodus, the Egyptians did enslave the Jews, although I don't completely buy that.
No, it's codswallop.
Have a great day. Thank you very much. $1.99. It is apparently not so. But
can I tell you something here about this canard? Okay, so the origin is the Old French. It's the Old French caner, Caner, means to quack.
Like a duck.
And canard, it means duck in the mid-19th century. From the French, literally duck, also hoax, from the Old French caner, to quack.
Well, thank you. That was great. It's great to hear that my suspicion confirmed, Michael. You confirmed my bias, and that makes me
confirmation bias.
Yeah, that makes me very happy. So I wanted to talk about this, even though it's not in the title of our talk today. The DHS says recording or following law enforcement sure sounds like.
Well, hold on. Can we do a little on the anti-Semitism first, because
Yeah.
it's in the thing?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, I reposted it now too. So the anti-Semitism, you have it. I gave you a few posts. Let me go look at them. I kind of wanted you to open up with the story because
Yeah, I'll get it.
I sent it to you, but I'll look it up here. Let me just
Okay,
back up.
so there's been a claim that AIPAC is like this very, very influential Jewish lobbying organization that basically holds Washington in the palm of its hand. They are the puppets, and Washington is dancing on the strings of the Jewish lobby and the Israeli lobby. But when you actually, you always have to ask a question, Michael, to provide context in comparison to what or whom. And once you start throwing the Jewish lobby into the context of other foreign state lobbyists out there, you get a very, very different picture of things. So AIPAC spent $100 million lobbying the U.S. government. Okay, China spends $460 million. Japan spent $410 million. Pharma, big pharma, the thing that everybody on both sides of the aisle, except the American Capitalist Party, seemed to be against, spent $387 million lobbying. And we can see now with Trump and his price controls why they would do such a thing, by the way. Saudi spent $310 million. Qatar spent $256 million. Yet somehow it's the Jewish lobby that spent half or a quarter of what these foreign lobbyists spent. That is the most influential lobby in Washington. Please. I mean, this stuff, you could Google this shit, Michael, and it's like, yet this crap still gets passed off on social media as if it's fact. Nobody brings in the full context.
Okay, now you're absolutely correct. And then, of course, the next story that I sent you is this Adam from Adam Media, is obviously not his real name. Whoever it is based not in the United States, but in England. And he spends a lot of his time attacking Jews as well.
He's a sociopath. He's a sociopath.
Okay. But we have this. I'm curious as to what you think about this, because this seems to be the other side to me of this equation, where you have people that say, well, it's because Muslims are growing, there's more Muslim population, or there's I like numbers says Islamists are having more kids. But here's the problem with that. Candace Owens is not an Islamist.
Right.
Tucker Carlson, nor is Dave Smith, nor is Scott Horton,
although they probably find at this point they find a bit of a camaraderie with those types of people, because they are religious, conservative, irrationalists, and so they will find as much a home with them as they're finding with, say, Orthodox Christians.
Perhaps, but Marjorie Taylor Greene is another one. Not an Islamist. Going back, Pat Buchanan, not an Islamist. There are so many people that are part of this stuff that are, this Bryce Lib, whatever the hell his name is not an Islamist. Chuck on Money says he believes in the MAGA, the Miami occupied government. Marco Rubio and the actions in Venezuela. Zog is not a serious thing. I like numbers says Tucker is influenced by Qatar. Well, maybe so, but Tucker is the one spreading the information around here. The Qatar is not the government of Qatar is not because Islamists are having more babies. It's because Qatar has a lot of money, and evidently, if you're right, then that would mean Tucker is on the take.
Indeed, yeah, indeed, he is on the take from Qatar, and so I don't know if his recent religious conversion from a lukewarm Episcopalian to now a fervent born-again Christian is actually real, or just trying to take the MAGA movement for everything it's worth. It's possible it's that. It's hard to get into the mind, Michael, of a sociopath. I mean, I'm psychologizing on the guy and calling him a sociopath.
All right. Let me ask you this. Do you ever get the urge to punch an anti-Semite in the face?
Yes.
Okay. That's going viral.
Of course I do. But because we live in a civil society, I don't.
We won't do it, but they do, but they're very. It's not just the anti-Semitism; it's the way they conduct themselves, the way they talk, the vitriol, the lies. It just makes you want to just give them a boom. But you don't do it because we believe in not initiating force.
I mean, I have the same feeling about communists and socialists. I mean, to me, it's nearly impossible if you're a thinking human being to be a communist or a socialist in the 21st century. It's impossible. So you're playing to something deep and dark within your own personality that needs to be checked, to be honest with you. It sounded like Michael said Marge Retailer Green. Yeah, well, there you go. I like that better, as a matter of fact. So did we deal with the anti-Semitism, Michael? I mean, there seems to be a trend. I mean, anti-Semitism has been a part of pretty much every culture since it, as long as I can remember, historically in the United States as well. But also there was a strong pro-Jewish sentiment, especially amongst the revolutionary Americans, who considered them sort of the bulwark of American, the vanguard of Western civilization. You know,
so I'll tell you, I'm going to use somebody as an example to show why what I think a big problem is. So I have a friend, Sheldon Richman, who I've got an interview coming out with him very soon. Really nice guy, great guy. Very critical of Israel, would probably disagree with you on Israel, 1,000%. Also very critical of people who make anti-Semitic remarks. Has no problem doing it. In fact, he posted something that I shared the other day. He said, if I have to be a tribe of one, then so be it. Now, whether we agree with him or not on his criticisms of Israel, they're honest and they're not based on Jew hatred. But there are people, as we've talked about in the past, who couch their Jew hatred as criticism of Israel. And it makes it sometimes difficult to detect what is actually going on.
I think the way you detect them, Michael, is not only by a double standard. If they have a double standard and they apply it, they apply that standard, a standard they don't apply to, let's say, Arabs or Arab states, they apply to the Jewish state, then you are up against somebody who's likely an anti-Semite. If they don't recognize the apartheid nature of the Arab states that literally ban Jewish life from their states. You cannot be a Jew and live in Jordan, Michael. And when Jordan had control of the West Bank for 19 years, they did not allow Jews to worship at their most sacred site, at the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall. They did not allow it for 19 years. Since Israel has controlled the holy sites in that area, of course, they allow Muslims to worship at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. But it would be the equivalent of them not allowing the Muslims to worship at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So when you ignore the apartheid nature of Gaza, for example, and instead place that on Israel, you are certainly representing a double standard and are probably anti-Semitic. If you claim that Israel is a white settler movement, you're also performing a double standard. Israel is one of the most ethnically diverse states I've ever seen. You cannot say the same for the Arab states. So that's the application of the double standard that should let you know that this person is using anti-Zionism as a means of just attacking Jews. So I wanted to get to this. Well, I switched articles, Michael, just on impulse because
that's okay. You can switch to whatever you want.
There's 5 turning points that explain MAGA's civil war. So as you guys know, particularly since Ben Shapiro's speech at America Fest, it appears like this once unified movement that seemed to be marching through the pages of history and kicking ass and taking names is really this a bunch of fractured little interwarring tribes. And it sort of came out after Ben Shapiro's speech, but this has been going on from the beginning. It was just more subtle in the very beginning. And there's 5 places where these sort of fracture zones seem to be demonstrating themselves. And it first came out with the MAGA's war on the H-1B visas, which, as you probably know, bring talent and brains into our country. The people didn't like that. And Vivek Ramaswamy said, look, America is worshiping a culture of mediocrity. If you're going to get rid of these things, which brings guys like Elon Musk into our world, creators and entrepreneurs with great energy and deep minds and who bring us products and are very productive, then you're for a culture of mediocrity. And we started to see the splits there, but they were quiet at the time because anti-immigrant fervor just sort of swept over the fact that, well, these particular visas bring in minds and they bring great wealth and innovation into our culture. Another one, though, Michael, is the U.S. bombing of Iran. Now, remember, Trump came into the White House proclaiming to be the president that was going to, set the world straight, give peace to the world, and not involve America in any more foreign wars. And what he's gone and done is gotten us into Iraq, and now he's surrounding and blockading Venezuela, threatening to undo the regime.
You mean Iran? Iran, not Iraq.
Sorry, Iran. Yeah, Iran, and then threatening, blockading Venezuela, and threatening regime change over there if he doesn't get what he wants, which is somehow declaring the state a narco-terrorist state and using that as a pretense to start a war in a foreign country. The very things that he said he was against are the very things that he is now under the banner of MAGA, claiming for MAGA. There's also, Michael, the Epstein files, which he wanted to release and then suddenly withdrew that. But now that, of course, spiked curiosity, and Congress has now compelled him to release these files. They want the pedophile influencer elite class to be exposed, and they think these files are going to do that. But Trump has fallen in line with the establishment, and he's keeping these files secret. And when he is allowing them to come out, they've been vetted by the Department of Justice and redacted heavily. Does that make you more suspicious, Michael? I mean, does that make you more suspicious?
Yeah. Yes.
There could be no there there, but they're making it seem as if there's a there there.
The interesting thing is that's a self-created problem for MAGA, because they're the ones that push the narrative.
And they're the ones who want to keep the narrative alive. It's Trump who's backed down, and that makes everybody suspicious.
Yeah. Well, he was part of the pushing it, him and Bongino and Kash Patel. And, now maybe there's nothing there, and that's the problem. You don't know. I do know this, right? Whether you support the bombing of Iran or not, the bottom line is Trump said he wouldn't get into stuff like that. Whether you support what's going on in Venezuela or not, Trump said he wouldn't get into stuff like that. So the bottom line is that Trump is just a grifter. He's a bullshitter. Like I said before, he's unconcerned with truth. It does not matter to him. Well, so he could say one thing today and a different thing next week, and it doesn't move him even a little bit. Getting called a liar, getting called out does not matter. And so I guess it makes sense that eventually that type of coalition built on grift ultimately falls apart. We had this Adam this morning calling Erica Kirk and Nicki Minaj grifters. Now he's obviously a grifter, right? So, the grift verse is coming apart. They're fighting each other.
I don't think Nicki Minaj has any reason. She's just, I think, an honest convert. She's not dependent upon politics.
No, I'm not. I don't know, and I don't even know that Erica Kirk is a grifter. I'm not saying they're the grifters. I'm just saying, but the grifters are fighting. Laura Loomer against Tucker Carlson and Candace.
They're all fighting for the heart and soul of Republicanism right now.
Yeah, they're a bunch of con men competing over the same marks.
Yeah, which brings me to number 4, Charlie Kirk's assassination. Sort of might have brought all this stuff to a head too, Michael, because he was sort of a coalition builder, and all of these disparate groups could somehow find unity under his umbrella or ignore their differences. They're long enough under his leadership to unite for a time and be more effective. Now that he's gone, there is no force unifying all these disparate elements. And so they're going at each other's throats as we speak, taking down the Republican Party, I might add, with them. And the Tucker Carlson interview with Nick Fuentes, another point for chisel point for the MAGA movement, is the embrace of an outspoken anti-Semite and Nazi worshiping freak into their ranks. You cannot embrace this guy which was the perception after the Tucker Carlson interview, and expect the movement to not be influenced by it, and it is being influenced by it. And of course, with J.D. Vance's consoling speech at the very end of America Fest, which was basically, let's forget our differences and unify. That's what we really need. He's in a sense saying, yeah, don't worry about the differences you may have with Nick Fuentes. He's part of a movement right now, and we need that. We need that momentum.
Right. As he proceeds to say, you know, we're all Americans, and then in order to be an American, you have to accept that it's a Christian nation, and
you have to have heritage, or do you have to have a
and Democrats are, you know, they just want to trans your kids, and they killed Charlie. You know, it wasn't just one lunatic; it's they've done it. You know, but that's the language you see all the time on social media. They. And that type of language has currency with people that want to believe that stuff.
Well, it helps them focus their energy, Michael. When you have a scapegoat, that foreign element that are the cause of all your problems, you can invest all your rage onto that then it allows them to expand their power, right? It's a tremendous focal point for people. This was an article from Reason Magazine. The DHS says recording or following law enforcement sure sounds like obstruction of justice. Now, this was a super scary article for me to read, Michael, because you have Reason Magazine inquiring into the Department of Homeland Security if videotaping officers arresting people or recording them in some way somehow is an obstruction of justice, and to get that response from a Department of Homeland Security official is frightening. That it is obstruction to videotape an arrest in progress. You are obstructing justice. Now, of course, this hasn't. Apparently, the Supreme Court punted on this issue, but it's been 7 circuit courts that have ruled in favor of the First Amendment, in favor of government transparency, which is, you as a citizen have a right to make sure that these proceedings follow due process, that people are not being unduly detained, or if they are, that you have a record of it, that you can now refer to this record in court. To claim that it is obstructing justice should send a chill down everybody's spine, because you are empowering the police to live in darkness and to operate in darkness and to be not subject to civilian oversight, which frankly, that's what that is. You are the civilian now with the power over the police agency by documenting everything that they say and do so that they are above board. What do you think about this, Michael? This is scary. I mean, J.D. Vance said some scary shit, and now the Department of Homeland Security is saying scary shit. I mean, they've been doing scary shit for a while now, but I mean, this does not bode well for us.
No, it does not. The idea that filming law enforcement officers is obstructing justice. I'm sorry. The people that want to stop them from being recorded are the ones obstructing justice.
Yes.
Not the people that are doing the recording. You can't follow them. I mean, obviously I would say if they're following them into homes, that would be an issue. But if it's on public streets and public sidewalks, what? Like, what are you talking about? I didn't buy it from the beginning, the idea that they needed to be masked. Now I buy it even less. What they want is immunity to do Trump's bidding. I'm not saying your individual ICE agent wants that. I'm saying the folks that promote them being masked, that don't want them recorded, don't want them followed, want them doing Trump's bidding with impunity.
Well, that seems to be the way that Trump operates. What do you think about their claim that violence and assaults against, now, of course, some of these assaults, when you actually read them, are ludicrous and they get thrown out in courts immediately. But they say that assaults on ICE officers have gone up 1,100%. So it's like, what do you think of that?
What I think is, if you had me and all my friends, let's say which isn't many, but let's just say I've got 20 friends, and you start sending us into neighborhoods with hostility, where we're viewed hostilely, right? All of a sudden, the assaults on Michael Leibowitz and his friends are going to go way up.
Right.
right? If you send police in, if all of a sudden you say we're going to start sending police into, all these new neighborhoods, and police are going to be harassing citizens and looking to arrest people, to even criminals, to bring criminals in, you're going to start seeing assaults on police officers going up. So when you start giving a greater and greater role to ICE, of course, assaults on ICE are going to go up. I don't know, how much that is to be expected. I just know that it makes sense that it happens. As I'll bet you, if you were to look up, ICE assaults on citizens, I'm going to bet, have gone way up as well.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. But Jason makes a very good point. They film us nonstop. Yes, they do. The surveillance state films us a lot, and they want to do more, Michael. I mean, they're shackling us with these true IDs, biometric stuff, so they can track our movements everywhere we go. They want to do a digital currency, of course, so they have control over our money and the flows of our money. I mean, that is a nanny state on crack, and that is a frightening thing, because the state is the one that violates more rights than any criminal ever has in the history of man. I mean, they are the ones that we have to shackle and restrain, not human beings living their lives and or filming law enforcement doing their jobs. But by that logic, we could stop all arrests to really lower officer assaults.
Yes, you could.
That's true. That would be the effect of it, though.
Yeah. The point isn't necessarily that ICE is doing something wrong. The point is that it makes sense that the more contact they have with people, the more assaults you're going to have on them.
Exactly. So, guess what? Zohran Mamdani has a radical inner circle.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. His transition team is composed of real radicals and anti-Semites. I don't know if you knew that, but apparently that seems to be the case. Surprise, surprise, surprise. I mean, look, the guy said up front what he was all about. You shouldn't be surprised by who he brings into his administration and how much power he wants to see to cede to himself. Michael, what I found particularly disturbing about this article, when it basically introduces us to a lot of individual members of his transition team who are troubling individuals politically and morally, I'm judging from their politics, is that the legislature, I thought he would be shackled by the legislature or by the city council to some degree, who voted to have a more moderate voice. Hold on a second.
I'm holding.
Hold on a second. Somebody's trying to get into my house.
A burglar?
Hold on. Is that you? Yeah. All right.
Is that you?
Well, I was seeing if it was my wife.
Well, you realize, though, that literally anybody on the planet would answer yes.
Well, good.
Is that you?
Then I hear their voice. I just need to hear the voice.
Is that you? No, it's not me.
Okay, good. Thank you. You better run, buddy.
This is why you played that role in No Holds Barred, I think.
What I found particularly disturbing, Michael, is that I thought the city council might be a check on him. I thought the state legislature would be a check on Donnie, but they might not be. Apparently, the vast majority of the people in the city council and in the state legislature are progressives like him. So that's scary, because that means that they have a person in their transition team who used to be working for the FCC, right? She's going to find all the obscure laws she can to give Mamdani the widest degree of power possible to institute his programs. She might not have to, because he might have a complicit city council and he might have a complicit state legislature, even though they're obligated to balance the budget this year, which should put some restraints on him. What the heck is Hochul going to do? She's not going to do anything. She's already cowed to him. She's already given in to him. She's already given in to the state legislature multiple times without getting anything in return. She's a political pussy, to be honest with you. And this guy's going to run roughshod over New York, I think. What do you think is going to happen with this guy?
It's looking that way. I hate to make political predictions because it's just very ephemeral. You don't know how it's going to turn out, but it certainly looks like he's going to get to implement a lot of the things that he wants. There'll be, negative results. And then I'm sure he's going to argue he needs more of the same, in order to fix the problems that he's already caused. But as you're talking, Mark, I'm reading the chats over here about, it says, I haven't read Dim, but your own said that Peikoff predicted authoritarians wrapped in the flag. And it's just the political momentum in this country is in the fringes now. It really is. And it's socialists and nationalists, and it really sucks.
I mean, let's say they're not really the fringe, Michael, but they're the most consistent application of their collectivism. So they're heading towards the moral.
They were still, I should say they were the fringe, because if they're taking over, then it's no longer the fringe. But these were fringe views not very long ago.
I mean, we're the fringe. We're on the fringe.
Yeah.
People who believe in liberty and human sovereignty are the fringe for real now. And we have to make ourselves mainstream, which reminds me, folks, remember to like and subscribe to this channel, and remember to share it from YouTube to other social media stations. We need to get this message out there in the world, folks. We've got too much collectivism going on, not enough individualism going on, and that's what we think will save us from the tragedy that I think is awaiting us if we keep going down this collectivist path. I know you sent a couple of articles from. I want to do the Cato article, because fiscal policy is raising costs for American families. Because Trump, the Democrats have wrapped themselves around the affordability crisis and are addressing the affordability crisis. Of course, they're doing it in all the wrong
Okay,
ways.
I want to interrupt you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I want to address this. I like number says telling white people they were racist for being white started things off. Well, let's be honest, not really, right? I think it was an abomination. I think it is an abomination to tell white people they're racist for being white. I think that the critical race theory and Robin DiAngelo's of the world, what's her name?
Abram X. Kendi.
Abram X. Kendi and Kimberly Crenshaw.
Yeah.
I think they're reprehensible in what they teach. I think affirmative action is a disaster. I think that the race baiting is a disaster. The race hustlers like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton are a disaster. And I think much of what we see today coming from, these nationalists is a response to that. But if we're going to play that game, then we have to say that dynamic was a response to some other stuff, right? And we can't pretend that other stuff didn't happen. Let's not pretend that Emmett Till was not murdered. Let's not pretend that there was not lynching, that there was not Jim Crow, that there was not convict leasing, that there was not slavery, that there was not mass rapes of black women, by their slave masters. So, I mean, does that justify calling all white people racist? No, but it's not as if Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton popped in out of nowhere, right? That's not what happened. So let's not play the white victimhood card like the Jesse Jacksons did.
Yeah, no, I mean, and he's responding to you. It's one thing to fight racism, but to say being white is inherently racist kicked off
It didn't kick off anything. You're starting at an arbitrary point that happens to suit the narrative that you prefer. That's the problem. And while listen, when that was happening, I'm the first one to arguing all the time. Nope, not a racist. It's not racist to be white. Every act of not hiring a black guy is not racist. The fact that blacks are overrepresented in the criminal justice system doesn't necessarily mean racist. Unequal outcomes isn't necessarily proof of racism. I was there, but all you're doing is starting at the point that you want when you say the modern battle started there, because that point that you're talking about stemmed from antecedent problems. And you can't just ignore that.
And let's face it, Michael, the people who were able to game these grievances, these long stemming grievances, wound up taking the collectivist road because it paid, right? The Al Sharptons of the world, it paid them to say the things that they were saying, to be a race baiter, to be a collectivist. They dumped Martin Luther King on the sidelines of history, who made us think about individualism by saying you measure somebody by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. And that's the world that he looked forward to. which was to look at people not for their racial identity, but for the identity of their character, for the values that they embraced. That's the proper way to look at things. But he's been kicked aside by the race hucksters and grifters who make a lot of money ginning up anger and rage. And that's happening on the white side too. They're making a lot of money ginning up white rage at being pinned for the historical problems that white people have actually committed against, for the crimes that they've actually committed against blacks, and being held responsible for things they shouldn't be held responsible for. Granted, I shouldn't be held responsible for slavery. I had nothing to do with it. My family had nothing to do with it. Barack Obama's family had more to do with slavery than I did, since he had slave owners on his side of the family, and I don't. Mine were all in Europe, in Germany. Yeah, it's that kind of collective judgment and collective punishment is awful, but it's the world that we live in, where demagogues rise to the top. They make the loudest noise, and they appeal to people's base emotions. The anti-racist crowd like us make conceptual arguments and moral arguments for our position, and that stuff doesn't go over well in sound bites.
Yes. So you got to give, you have to give the capitalist thought of the day. I just want to say to I Like Numbers that CRT did not begin during the Obama administration. That may be when it started to get popularized as much by the right trying to take advantage of it as by the left. But that is not when it began. It actually started with critical legal theory going back, I think, to the 70s, maybe even the 60s.
Yeah, I'm thinking the 60s, but I could.
Yeah, its origins were in critical legal theory. Then it branched out. Critical race theory actually was a legal theory to start with. Okay, Mark, give the capitalist thought of the day.
Look, what we're seeing around us today are tribes warring with each other, collectives who are angry at each other and using the political process to get leverage and power. And in the process, they're taking away your own moral agency and power from you to live your life the way you want to live it. I say individualism, not collectivism, should be the ethics that a society goes by. Protecting individual rights, not spreading wealth and resources to a constituency, should be what the government does. If you think that sounds like a benevolent society to you, then embrace the capitalist ideal of individualism and individual rights and an inviolable right to your own property and the disposal of your property. And that's what we think as capitalists leads to a truly benevolent society, where force is delegated to an agency that is strictly bound by due process. And you won't see the kind of hysterics in society that we're seeing today, particularly from the political class. You'll see a political class bound to you, to serve you, that has a fiduciary responsibility to you to protect and defend your rights. All right, what do you say, Michael?
I think that was excellent. And now for the question, please go to YouTube and answer it. It helps with the algorithm. And also, please share from YouTube to all your favorite social media platforms. The question today is, what is the best way to combat irrationality in the culture? What is the best way to combat irrationality in the culture?
I like that one. I like that one a lot. So, folks, we'll be here tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. You heard that, Persephone. 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern time. You have 23 hours to recheck your premises. If you are a statist, if you are liking the MAGA movement, I'm sorry. We hope that our words will start to shift you in the right direction towards individual liberty, individual rights, and inviolable right to your own property. And you'll give up the collectivist nonsense, all right? So stick with us, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Check your premises in the meantime. Peace.